The topic of this video is MARC. First, a quote from the late Arson Ralph Papakian, who was the head of technical services at the music library when I was a student, and the driving force behind my first library job. This is the tree planted in his memory, just outside the window of my office, and that's part of my card catalog. Quote, "Those unfamiliar with cataloging techniques prior to the use of computers and networks will find it difficult to appreciate the full impact of these technologies on day-to-day work. The cataloger's former armament of typewriters, cardstock, pens, pencils, X-Acto blades, erasers, correction fluid, and so forth, supported by vigorous exercise resulting from constant walking around the library in order to verify information in card and printed catalogs, has been gradually replaced by the sedentary perusal of computer screens, the tapping of computer keyboard keys, complaints about network downtime, and, eventually, unbelievable access to a universe of information by means of a few clicks on a web browser. Mundane routines associated with the physical handling of cataloging cards have been eliminated, and computer screen manipulation programs have automated routine manual functions involved in searching, verification, copying and pasting data, and so on." End quote. I know you've already been exposed to MARC, but to continue the understanding, the described characteristics of resources are held and arranged by a software framework called MARC, which is an acronym for Machine Readable Cataloging. MARC seems like an unusual or even nonsensical thing, but the same could be said for any programming language, taxonomy, or framework. MARC is a markup language. It is a taxonomy. It is a framework. MARC tags may not seem very useful because they are made up of numbers and letters, but not words in our natural language. As we go through this course, you will hear fields and subfields referred to by their MARC tags and by their natural language labels interchangeably. Since the creation of a computer-based library catalog environment, we have been using this set of 3-digit numeric tags and 1-character alphanumeric subtags to hold all of our data. These live in the markup, taxonomy, framework of MARC. It is limited to 3-digit numbers like 245, but not natural language text like title. You may wonder why in the world anyone would bother with numbers when we could just use words. To which I say that people with more degrees and education than me have spent a great deal of time memorizing Latin, or else people would go to the doctor because they have a leg owie, not a broken femur. Here's another way of looking at it. MARC is a container like a box. Inside the box we put fields, the ones with 3-digit numeric tags on them. Each of those fields is a container itself. Inside them we put subfields, the ones with the 1-digit alphabetical or numeric tags on them, with the double cross or the $sign or a vertical line. They're containers too. We put the descriptive content inside them. But truthfully, this is a very early computer program in the history of computers as we know them, and was developed before the internet took hold, but was an early adopter of that as well. At the time when it was developed, data was stored in giant machines, and space was very literally limited. So 3 digits was manageable. There were also some limits on the amount of data included in each MARC box and the number of MARC boxes that could coexist. As computers, their storage, and the internet advanced, MARC also grew. But it is a beast of sorts and can be slow-moving. When you learn to apply cataloging guidelines in the MARC framework, you learn these alphanumeric tags, and you get to know what they represent. The tags are what tell the library catalog which words to display so that people know what kind of content they are seeing. We talked a little last week about how the effect of removing punctuation may not be so bad because a library catalog could be programmed to tell us what it is showing. It could also utilize both fields and subfields to know what labels to give pieces of informational data and how to display it in general. That is true. If you think about HTML, we add alphanumeric characters in angle brackets like opening caret, strong, closing caret. That tells a web browser which is programmed to display content, to put the information after that HTML tag in boldface print. The same is true for XML, and web browsers can be taught to identify content by the tags added. I purposefully chose this view with the natural language labels on the left. Catalogers don't usually need the labels. Instead, they learn the numeric field tags and alphabetic subfield tags, like doctors learn the Latin names for diseases. For example, I've pulled out the field that holds the title and statement of responsibility. In MARC, that information is placed in a 245 field. The vertical bar followed by the letter A is subfield A, where the title goes. Subfield H, which is no longer in use, indicates the type of material this describes, in this case a sound recording. Subfield B holds other title information like subtitles or additional component titles included in the resource. Subfield C indicates the statement of responsibility. As you encounter MARC records in various systems, you will see these symbols used interchangeably to isolate subfields. In IUCAT, we use the vertical bar. The web version of the WorldCat cataloging interface uses the $sign, and the $sign is typically used in familiar communication because it is easiest to type. The software client version of WorldCat cataloging interface uses the double cross. MARC was developed in the 1960s by Henriette Avram. It was the U.S. standard by 1971 and was an international standard by 1973. The United States used a version called US MARC. Canada used its own version called CanMarc. UK MARC was used in the United Kingdom, and Unimarc is still used in Europe. US MARC originally had tags for use solely by certain formats of resources. In some ways, it separated books, serials, computer files, maps, music, visual materials, and mixed materials, giving each some of their own specialized fields. MARC 21 was created in 1999 by US MARC, consolidating formats within itself and aligning with CanMarc and harmonizing more directly with Unimarc.